our aim internally at least is to create the best place to borrow and earn in DeFi. So if you hold assets and you want to borrow against them, Summer's the best place for that. If you want to earn on those assets, Summer is the best place for that, with the connections to the underlying protocols as well. But it is time to kind of now put a really nice UX layer on top of that, trying to be that best place to borrow and earn, trying to allow you to easily compare rates across different protocols, across different networks, understand the differences that each protocol offers you and so on, and the kind of trade-offs that you're taking with each one. And so ultimately allow you to get the position that you're happy with or comfortable with. Like when we talk about protocols, we try and add that kind of like 10x experience basically to the underlying protocol.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights Summer.fi. In this episode, we explore a trusted platform for providing cutting-edge tools to borrow, earn, and optimize your DeFi strategies, plus the latest details on their soon-to-be-launched Lazy Summer protocol, a new permissionless product for automating and diversifying passive yield. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge Podcast possible. Introducing REDSTONE, the fastest-growing oracle for DeFi. REDSTONE is the leading oracle for liquid staking and restaking assets, supporting over 60 chains with both the push and pull models. REDSTONE protects more than $3 billion of total value locked and is trusted by more than 100 clients, including the biggest protocols in DeFi, such as Pendle, Venus, EtherFi, and Athena. The unique modular design of REDSTONE makes their price feeds available cross-chain, including EVM, non-EVM, roll-up networks, and all types of app chains. REDSTONE aims to bring the industry forward by supporting upcoming Bitcoin staking tokens and continues to be the #1 oracle provider for liquid staking and restaking tokens. Soon the team will unveil the highly anticipated REDSTONE token to decentralize the protocol. Learn why Nomadic and I rely on REDSTONE for our favorite DeFi apps at REDSTONE.finance and join the REDSTONE expedition today. Discover MERLIN Chain, the cutting-edge Bitcoin Layer 2 trusted with over $2 billion in total value locked. MERLIN revolutionizes Bitcoin by unlocking its true potential with native L1 assets, lightning-fast transactions, and ultra-low fees on an EVM-compatible network. Elevate your Bitcoin experience with MERLIN Chain today at merlinchain.io. All right, let's introduce Chris, the CEO of Summer.fi. Chris, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, yeah, good, thanks. Great to be here.
So Summer.fi, if I were to dumb it down, it's an all-in-one platform for DeFi. It's a place where you can earn by just lending. You can use vaults that allow you to loop yields. You can create vaults for borrowing. I think one of the reasons I have loved using Summer.fi is the fact that it helps me to filter through my choices. What protocols, what yields exist, what networks they're on, and that's the challenge nowadays. There's just so many options out there. So, Chris, why don't we talk about the origins of Summer.fi? Would love if you can kind of connect, like, what was Oasis and, like, how does this all connect back to Maker? Because, again, if you're new to DeFi, you really want to understand that history. It's a lot of traction in the space. It's a lot of longevity. It's a reason why we as power users of DeFi trust using Summer.fi.
Yeah. So, yes, I mean, Summer.fi, you referred to it before as Oasis. Yeah. Started its life as Oasis.app. Actually, in the Maker Foundation, it was the default front end for the Maker protocol back in 2019 when multi-collateral DAI launched, which seems like such a long time ago now. You think about everything that's happened in crypto. But yeah, so it started life in 2019. Not too dissimilar to how you see it today. It had 3 key features. You had borrow, which still exists today. You had trade, which you can still do the standard swaps on and so on. And you had save, which was the start of the DAI savings rate, or the DSR, which is still on today, kind of replaced by Sky's changes there. But yeah, so 2019 till 2021, it was one of the front ends for Maker run out of the Maker Foundation. But when the Maker Foundation effectively done its job, it delivered the Maker protocol, it delivered MCD, it started hand everything over to the community. The Maker Foundation was wound down, and Oasis.app at the time, being this kind of like centralized entity running on websites, had servers behind the scenes and so on, split out into its own company. And from that moment on, like started to integrate a little bit more of DeFi. We added things like multiply to it, allowing you to go like 1 to 3x on Maker vaults and so on in one transaction. And then, that kind of took us all the way through to last year, where actually we decided to take that final kind of step, basically, of saying, hey, let's let go of our kind of Maker roots once and for all and move away from the Oasis.app brand, which had so many connotations as well with Maker back in the original Oasis DEX days, like the first DEX on Ethereum, I think pretty much, or first order book based DEX, like in 2017. So yeah, last year we rebranded to Summer.fi to kind of step back away from that Maker kind of connection in a way, even though we're still today so connected to Maker today, or Sky now. And at that point started to onboard much more of DeFi. We kind of refer to ourselves as a curator rather than an aggregator, because we don't just support everything under the hood. We pick and choose only the best and most trusted protocols and kind of tokens then as well underneath to support, to make sure the users can trust us with their money. And today it's Summer.fi, includes other protocols, Aave, Spark, Morpho, Arjuna, and so on. And but Maker still is, as a single protocol, is still the biggest used protocol on Summer, which just shows the kind of greatness of Maker as well.
Yeah, there's a pretty rich OG DeFi history there with Summer.fi. I want to just kind of get into, like, in simple terms, what you would say Summer.fi is solving for. Like, how would you kind of like break it down to a new user to try to bring them to Summer.fi?
Yeah, so we describe Summer.fi as, like, our aim internally at least is to create the best place to borrow and earn in DeFi. So if you hold assets and you want to borrow against them, Summer's the best place for that. If you want to earn on those assets, Summer is the best place for that, with the connections to the underlying protocols as well. That is what we try and do. And ever since we launched in 2019 as well, like, UI UX has always been at the forefront of that. Like, we want to create a nice experience for users and a clear experience for users and on how to access DeFi. So much of DeFi is still completely like UX is secondary, and that's completely right. Like, for years, like, UX should have always been secondary in a way. Like the technology at the smart contract level and so on, and the amazing kind of DeFi protocols and primitives and so on that we've created are incredible, and that should never have taken a backseat to UX. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the incredible technology that we have. But it is time to kind of now put a really nice UX layer on top of that. And we feel like we've taken a few steps with that with Summer.fi. Like I said, like, trying to be that best place to borrow and earn, trying to allow you to easily compare rates across different protocols, across different networks, understand the differences that each protocol offers you and so on, and the kind of trade-offs that you're taking with each one. And so ultimately allow you to get the position that you're happy with or comfortable with. And in that, just keep adding kind of UX layers on top of the protocols, basically. Like, when we talk about protocols, we try and add that kind of like 10x experience basically to the underlying protocol.
Chris, how did the team decide to curate yields versus just list all of them? It's something that really stood out to me, that there is some bit of like a research team that's, trying to decide what should we list, not should we just list everything that's available on a protocol that is supported.
Yeah, so there's two things in that, really. One is we always aim for sustainable long-term yields, particularly when it came to mainnet, and we spent years just on mainnet as well, with the gas prices so high and so on. Like, allowing users to go into a product where they would have to be in for at least 60 days maybe to break even, and maybe with us knowing that this yield looks great, but it's probably only going to be around for like a week or so, like, wouldn't be like an honest way to like allow users to get into these things. In the same way we don't show current yields, we only show 7-day or 30-day yields and so on. So kind of on that, like, it has to be a sustainable and long-term position for us to kind of want to support it. We're not after the kind of like super quick, like 1000% APY for 2 days, which might get rugged. And on the other side of that as well is we've kind of always had a long-standing tradition, particularly kind of within the product team at Summer, of if we wouldn't use it ourselves, then we don't add it to Summer.fi. So if it's a token that we don't trust to use it ourselves, if it's a protocol that we don't trust to use it ourselves, then we're not going to say, hey, we don't trust this, but you guys should take the risk as users on this because it might make us some money, for example. So if we're not going to take the risk with it, then we don't expect you to take the risk with it. So yeah, pretty much everyone in the company uses Summer on there. from their own like kind of personal approach. Like definitely the product team use it a lot. I know that full well, and like it's we ultimately build what we would like. Kind of first of all, the product was like you build what you want to use, and then you try and validate that there's other people that want to use that as well. We've done a good job there, I think. But yeah, that curation starts at it's got to be sustainable, got to be long term, and we've got to want to use it as well.
I feel like that last point is like just the most powerful one too. It's like if I'm not willing to use this, why would I put it out to the masses? It's like that inner team validation. You're all kind of in DeFi using the product, so yeah, what you want to use is naturally what you should be kind of opening up to the people. I want to get into kind of some of the depth that I see with Summer.fi. I feel like there's a lot of different ways to use it, and there's strategies to use it even at different points in the market. Maybe can you like walk us through how people can use Summer.fi in like a bear, a bull, or like a crab market type?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So like you're 100% right. It is it is very deep. It's rich with features and so on, but it is also it is pretty complex. And we're aware that like maybe as a brand new newbie, like it is very straightforward to use. But with your examples, like in a bear market, there's a number of different, like we have a number of like stable coin positions in there as well, and also some of the ETH yield loops. So depending on kind of what side of the fence you kind of like sit on, when it comes to like kind of a bear market, if you're like going to hold ETH regardless, like I'm not getting rid of my ETH, I've accrued this ETH, I'm actually buying ETH or whatever, then we've got like really kind of now feels like pretty classic like ETH yield loop positions, or for now the more adventurous users like the restaking, like the restaked ETH's yield loop positions as well, but effectively allowing you to hold your ETH, not take much risk on the kind of like price side of things. It's the kind of wrap staked ETH against ETH. Is the kind of classic, the most common one we have on the platform. Still one of the most popular ones for new users to get into because I think it's so trusted, and the risk for it are as low as it kind of gets really when it comes to yield loops. Like you're just taking the risk of the staked ETH peg, ultimately, which does still exist as we saw kind of early August, unfortunately. But with that strategy there, you can go in, you can yield loop. What you're effectively doing is arbitraging the staked rate, effectively paid from like if it's staked ETH from Lido against the borrow rate on something like Aave or Morpho or Spark or whatever. So if the staked rate is greater than the borrow rate, then it's profitable, and you can go up to like 10x on the difference of that rate basically. So if the difference is around 1%, then you can go up to about 10% and so on there pretty comfortably, just knowing that when you want to get out, if you've gone in at a peg that's 1-to-1, when you get out, if the peg isn't at 1-to-1 or very close to 1-to-1, you can kind of get wrecked pretty easily on there. But for users that are just holding ETH and want to maximize their yield on that ETH without taking risks on maybe new protocols or like against the USD price or whatever, then that is the best way. There's obviously short positions available on Summer as well. We've got multiply, so if you're holding ETH, you're kind of, you're not holding ETH, but you're confident in the ETH price falling, that you can short ETH, you can short like WBTC or TBTC, like whatever BTC variant you're into at the moment, like shorting's on there. Or if you're kind of like, when it's a bear market, you're jumping out of the market, you're going to stables or whatever. We've got a number of stable strategies as well. We've kind of got maybe the safest kind, which is like the DSR or the SUSDS now from Sky, the kind of Sky savings rate or the DAI savings rate, depending, like both are still supported. Just earn a pretty risk-free rate on your stables on there. There's also some yield loops on there as well. Again, they come with peg risk, they come with swap risk and so on. But generally the yields are higher. You can also farm points depending if you're like using like USDE or whatever, and so on. But they're kind of the ones on there for you as well. Those same positions, like yield loops, are also ideal in a crab market. We launched a wrap staked ETH in the middle of the 22 kind of like crab market, or 23 crab market, like late 22, 23, where 23 just didn't seem to do anything really. But like we had a lot of users just accumulating more ETH. I think the yields were like 11, 12% for a long time. I think they're still somewhere around like 6-7% available at the moment, like on the 30-day averages and so on. But like like when the market's not really going up and down, you don't want to be exposed to any borrow rate costs and so on, trying to bet if the market's going to move when it just kind of stays steady. The yield loop positions are the best positions we've got for that. And then if it's a bull market, we've got multiply. If you're pretty confident that the like underlying assets you're holding, whether it's ETH, whether it's BTC or whatever, going up, you can open a multiply position, take it against the stable, whether that's USDC, USDT, DAI, USDS on there at the moment. But what's great about Summer is that we've got the automation tools. So although you're taking this additional risk by opening a multiply position, which is kind of like a leverage-like position, you go 3x, go 4x against the underlying thing. Obviously, you're hoping that the asset increases at a much greater rate than the borrow costs of that at the time, particularly kind of like an annualized rate. But then you've got automation to basically protect you from the downside. So there shouldn't ever really be a case where you lose maybe more than 5% of your money in an absolute worst case if you set everything up correctly. We've got stop losses, we've got trailing stop losses, we've got auto sells, all on the downside protection. But on the upside, we've got great tools as well. One of the best ones that unfortunately came out kind of tail end of the most recent bull run really was our kind of automated take profit. Like most of us in the team kind of sat there in 21 thinking like going into 22, like, oh, I wish we had an automated take profit tool in DeFi where like I don't have to make that emotional decision to sell because I never sell when the price is going up because I might miss out on those extra gains or whatever. If you can programmatically put that in, set it, forget about it, put a trailing stop or just an ordinary stop loss behind it as well. So you know if the market does dump, you're going to get out probably with a profit. If it does continue to grow, you're going to take profits out of there as well. And the great thing about the automated take profit tools that we have on those positions as well is they keep you at a constant exposure to the market. So if you go in at 3x, it keeps you at 3x, just kind of skimming the profit off the top straight back to your wallet, either in the underlying token or in the debt token like a stable coin. And yeah, I think like if you go in at 2.5x, like the price only has to go up 40% for you to recoup your entire like deposit back in your wallet, while still being exposed with that same amount at 2.5x to the market. So yeah, I definitely like Summer.fi was originally built around the kind of bull market scenarios and so on. We all got hit with the bear markets, which is why we have so many downside protection tools available and so on, like the one-click exits from any position, like one transaction you can be out. And then yeah, the crab market and bear market ones are there as well.
Just to summarize some of the automation benefits on Summer.fi. So one bit of automation that I think is like the easiest to access is it's being able to like enter or exit positions with one click, or let's call it 1 to 2 transactions. So for example, if I was going to get into like a yield looping position and let's say it's like a Morpho vault that's listed and the collateral is Steth by Lido or WSteth wrapped Steth, and then I'm borrowing like ETH against that. That's a really good example where in order to create that position, in order to like lever up, it would require a lot of, manual work. Like you'd have to be, basically borrowing and then swapping and then depositing more collateral. And so that looping is huge. And that is also available, I think, in different instances, depending on what type of borrow position you want to open. Do you want to pay that back using some collateral? Do you want to take out more debt again and like get more levered up and create a position with more collateral and more debt? So that for me has been like one of the simpler ways to use it. One of the examples though you just referenced, can you just dumb down again like what automation features are available for someone who's for someone who's looking for help with a trading position? Like to your point, like it might be like a stop loss, something to automate, getting out of a position or maybe even levering up more as the market goes higher and higher.
Yeah. So the most common one, and pretty much for all the users that use automation, like 90% of users use is stop loss, of that standard stop loss or a trailing stop loss that's available. So ordinary stop loss is all of the kind of multiply positions, even the yield loops and stuff, have an LTV. So you manage your position based on the LTV. There's there's a liquidation LTV obviously you always want to avoid. And the stop loss standard stop loss works by just setting us effectively a stop loss, a stop LTV. So choosing the LTV, which you're saying, if my vault like on chain goes below this LTV, which is verifiable through the oracles and everything, it will just stop me out. There's automated tools like keepers and so on running behind the scenes, and it's still fully non-custodial and so on. But you set, like, let's say 75%. If my loan to value hits 75%, close me out. Only has to even hit it maybe for a second, but soon as it crosses that mark on chain by the oracle prices and so on, it will close you out. Okay. And you can choose whether you want to be close to the collateral or the debt token. So if you're in wrap staked ETH USDC, you can close it to wrap staked ETH, or you can close it to USDC. The majority go to debt, I think, because you want to get out of that market as quick as possible, and so on if the price is falling. The other one is the trailing stop loss, which is a lot newer on Summer.fi and is much nicer, particularly if you want to get in and you just want to kind of get in and make as much money as quickly as possible, but as soon as it starts to drop, get out. So how that works, if you set a trailing distance maybe of $100, so if you get into ETH at say 2,500 or whatever, and the trailing stops is $100, it means at that moment, if the price goes below 2,400, it will stop you out. However, if the price climbs to 2,750, the trailing stop will follow that with you. So that then means the trailing stop is then automatically set to 2,650. So it's 100 behind. Now the price of ETH might drop to 2,700 again, but the trailing stop is locked on the like it can never go down in price. It can only ever follow it upwards. So even if the price of ETH starts to go down, then carries on again, it always has to go beyond 100 for it to start moving with it again. So in this case, if it started off at like 2,400, I think the example we said was, and it climbed to 2,750 and then dropped to 2,620, you'd be stopped out as soon as it goes below 650. Again, either to collateral or the debt token, whatever you like. But it's a really nice one to know that compared to a normal stop loss, if you set it at 75 and the market starts rallying loads, actually the loan to value of your vault could end up going all the way down to like 30%. The issue you've got there is the price has to fall all the way back beyond your entry price before it stop you out. So there's no way to automatically take any profit from that. Like you kind of gone all the way up and all the way back down again. Kind of like how I think a lot of us feel all the way back from like 2017 and so on, right? That we ride it up and we ride it down. But the trailing stop will get you straight out. The other one is the kind of basic sell. So you just kind of like de-lever just a little bit. So as the price is falling, just kind of reduce, maybe like if the LTV hits 75%, move it back down to 65%. If it hits 75% again, move it back down to 65. And it's just constantly selling some of the collateral in your vault, swapping that to debt and just repaying the debt. So it's lowering your LTV. The problem with that one is yes, it keeps your position open. So it, like, if it's only a small market dip, it keeps you in it and then maybe keep rising up. But if it triggers several times, it can be a slow death to zero. If you're not careful, like it can just keep selling, and it's like you're just losing the net value of your position ultimately. So it is a more maybe advanced one. And we often, what we see with users is we allow users on the auto sell to set a minimum sell price. So if like do the auto sell down to a set price and then trigger stop loss below that. So we have this, we as a user, you can set this hierarchy. So you can say, hey, I'll do 2 auto sells, but as soon as I've gone below like 2,500, maybe my entry price, I don't want it to auto sell again. I want it to close out if the price has gone below that and gone beyond my stop loss level as well. So yeah, there's a variety of tools to be able to like kind of, again, help you on the downside protection. And we've definitely put a lot more focus on the downside protection. Again, kind of helping users like not lose their money against maybe some of the more optimized ones. So one we've always wanted to do, but never quite figured out like a really nice way of doing it in a safe way, or at least kind of like using backdata to work out exactly the nice way of like being able to do it would be to stop loss and then have the automated tools try and work out in the market when's the best time to reopen it automatically for you again. But it just isn't, like what we found is there isn't good patterns that we could programmatically put on chain into this automated bot that has no manual override or no manual input from an automation point of view that to say, hey, this is the pattern that always works and always makes the users money, maybe 9 times out of 10. It just kind of wasn't there in a way. So yeah, we have more downside protection tools again to protect the user. Because from our point of view, if we keep the users balance, basically, then they're much more likely to come back to Summerfire and reopen their position than they are if they get liquidated or they get wrecked and have no money to come back to us with.
Hey everyone, before we get back to the show, excited to tell you about a new omni-chain Bitcoin solution called FBTC, which has already surpassed $125 million in TVL and become the fastest growing BTCFi asset this summer. The FBTC points campaign Sparkle offers sustainable yields plus points and token airdrops from strategic partners such as Babylon, Mantle's new token Cook, and more. To learn more, visit fbtc.com/ongoing-campaign. And special thanks to FBTC for sponsoring us at the Edge Podcast.
Chris, just kind of like putting all this together in simple terms, how would you define the difference of, I guess, going directly to the front end like a Morpho Spark versus going to Summer.fi front end first and then utilizing those protocols under the hood? Like, how would you kind of, like, in simple terms, summarize that?
Yeah. So if you go directly to the protocol, you don't get any of these kind of like one transaction like to an end state. So if you know you want to go 10x or you want to go 5x or anything, none of the protocols that are supported have that option on the protocol UI to be able to get there in that 1 or 2 transactions, depending if you need an allowance or not. So that's the first one. And the second one is they don't have the automation tools either. So if you use the front end, like the protocol front ends, like they're obviously really good front ends. They're extremely well trusted because they're the protocol front ends from the protocols that the users want to use. But if the price is falling quickly, there's no kind of one-click close options like you have to. And I remember from Black Thursday in Maker when we didn't have any of these one-click close options, and we were desperately trying to help users like withdraw some collateral, swap it on Uniswap or whatever, repay their debt. Like gas prices were all over the place. People were getting their nonces mixed up and so on in their wallet. And it was an absolute nightmare. So like you obviously don't have those options. That one thing we have on Summer.fi is a migrate feature. So if the market is crashing, users can one-click migrate and then one-click close if they need to. At the moment, like as an absolute kind of like worst case scenario for them. But yeah, you don't have the automation features as well. So you wouldn't have the ability to set up a stop loss or a trailing stop or anything like that. Or if the market's going up, that automated take profit. And that's I mentioned earlier, like that's where we try and add that 10x experience, basically.
Chris, this whole migration of Maker to Sky, one thing that I saw on Twitter was, I believe Summer.fi was essentially offering a bit of like a geographic arb because Sky was geo-restricted, I think, for users to, I guess, exchange their DAI and upgrade it to the new form. Maybe just like, can you kind of riff on that a bit? Like that to me seems like another added benefit of, I want to say it's almost like skirting around that geo block. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Sky.money is blocked in a number of countries as the front end. Obviously the protocol is permissionless, it's open to anyone and so on. And at Summer, like we don't have any of that kind of like, we're not directly connected to the protocols or anything, and we don't have the geographical restrictions that others do have. Like there's a number of protocols, for instance, I can't access from where I am, based on these geographical blocks and so on. Like I'm also blocked from Sky.money, for example. So I'm forced to use Summer.fi as well for that. But yeah, it's massively helpful that we have this front end that isn't connected to any direct protocols under the hood at the moment, and so on, and doesn't need to have any of these geographic restrictions. And so on. So yeah, people wanting to upgrade their DAI or MKR to USDS or Sky respectively, yeah, can use Summer.fi for that. Like we do have the standard sanctioned countries blocked, like I think almost any and every front end does, really, like you have to really. But yeah, the major countries and so on that need access to that are all available at Summer.fi.
Chris, what can you tell us about the raise campaign? I guess like what are raise? How do you earn them? And yeah, what else do we need to know about this campaign before I guess this translates over to a rate token?
The raise are the points, the points of Summer.fi at the moment. So as a user of Summer, if you enter into any of the positions on Summer, you can earn raise, basically. There's leaderboards and so on. You can see what people are doing on there and so on, and you get raise for almost anything on Summer.fi. So the very basic standard is if you have an open position on Summer, then you earn raise on there. I think it's I forget the number. Maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong, but I think it's 750 raise for like every $10,000 there or thereabouts on there. But you can boost them in various ways. If you enable automation, then your raise get boosted. I think it's like 1.2x for a downside protection boost, and like 1.5x if you have an upside one, and they can join together as well. So you get the 1.2x first, and you get 1.5 of that, and so on. You also get, every time you use multiplier yield loops, you get swaps, like raise for swaps, basically based on the size of your swap. And actually, what we've seen is maybe I'm a couple of weeks out of date, and hopefully, but I'm not. But at least like a few weeks ago, the person that was at the very top of our leaderboard, actually for the raise campaign, it's a fascinating kind of like view if you go and look at this user and what they're doing, because they don't have a big position. I think it's like $50,000 or so on, but they're a heavy like power user of like multiply and so on, and they've got all of the boosts you can get from all the swaps and so on, and they're just like earning a ton of raise while managing their position on Summer.fi, and you compare that like they're above people with like a $40 million position, and so on Summer. So you don't have to have a huge amount of money to earn raise on Summer. Like if you interact with the features, you enable automation, you use the multiplier or the yield loop contracts and so on, you can earn a ton of raise on that. And generally every other week or so, we have a different kind of like raise boost going on. I think in September we had a Spark, like a double points for Spark users and so on. I think for a couple of weeks in August we had like a kind of celebrating Summer, we had like double points for every swap that you did. So you suddenly massively boost all your points for swaps and so on for that. But yeah, the raise campaign is there. When we announced it, it was kind of like the precursor to the launch of the protocol that's coming, that you've mentioned already, the Lazy Summer protocol that's coming out soon as well. And the raise will form kind of like more details are to be announced slightly closer to the launch in like maybe next 4 to 6 weeks. But yeah, the raise will form part of that kind of launch period of the protocol.
That user at the top of the leaderboard sounds like an absolute DeFi Jedi. That's impressive. So essentially accruing more points with a $50,000 position than people with a 40 million position. That takes skill. We should have them on the pod as well at some point. DeFi Dad.
Yeah. I mean, we had no idea who they are, but
I want to transition. You mentioned Lazy Summer protocol right there, and it's something that we want to talk about as well. So I've essentially just seen, I think, a light paper that was floating around. Don't know a ton about it just yet, but maybe just give us the high level of this new protocol that's being built out, I believe, internally by the Summer.fi team.
Yeah. So, I mean, the light paper is the only thing out there at the moment, but it is effectively what we're trying to create is that kind of next generation of like passive earn products, and automated rebalancing yield aggregation products, basically. So there's obviously a number of protocols out there and so on, all offering kind of yield and so on. And we've kind of started to see a trend now with like Morpho, Euler and so on of the risk curators. And not only do we have multiple protocols to be able to deposit maybe USDC in or DAI in or anything like that into, but then there's a choice of like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 risk curators as well, all with the kind of same ones and so on. And we've spoken to kind of many DeFi native users that manage a lot of these positions and effectively are checking and moving their money around daily or even weekly at times, trying to kind of like catch the best yields and so on. And one of the biggest problems with that is obviously you're always looking at effectively the past yield, and you're always a little bit late to the party and so on. So yeah, we've built these new vaults which can you basically deposit your token into this USDC or DAI or whatever, and it will automatically rebalance you depending on what the highest yield is of all the supported protocols underneath, while maintaining kind of like a diversification feature as well. So it will never put 100% of your money into one protocol, for example. it will diversify out a little bit, but it'll make sure it's heavily weighted towards the best performing protocols out there. And also when it rebalances, ensuring that if it's going to take like 20 million from protocol A and put 20 million protocol B, that isn't also then just going to move the rates around, so we end up in a kind of like flipping scenario. Like it's going to be very clever from that point of view, but it will be the best place to be able to earn a yield in DeFi from that point of view. A little bit like how we used to talk about Summer being that. Initially, it will just support stable coins and so on that, but we are kind of working on the ETH versions next as well, which actually we're trying to build in what we know a lot of people use Summer.fi front end for already, which is basically carry trading. So borrowing against things like ETH and so on, if there's a profitable trade to be had for like the DAI or USDC or whatever on the market from those. So if you imagine like being able to deposit your ETH, if it can borrow ETH, again, automatically rebalancing to be the cheapest place to borrow against that, then deposit into the main part of the stablecoin protocol, if that is yielding a bigger rate difference than, say, lending your ETH on Aave or whatever. So again, it will constantly rebalance you to the best place, whether that's doing a carry trade or not doing a carry trade, whether that's staking it or not, and so on. But you'll know that if you've got this ETH, like once the protocol launches, or you've got this DAI, this USDC, you only need to deposit in this one place, which will get you the best yield. From the back testing we've done, like it generally always achieves at least a 20% better return than likes of like Aave or Compound. So if you compare it to the kind of where the most amount of like passive capital is, like Aave and Compound and so on, like we can always beat those rates by 20%. And that isn't just by chasing like newer protocols or protocols you've unheard of. It will be the same kind of mantra that you get on Summer.fi today. So that same kind of curated protocol experience, more than likely, like it's going to be governed by, there's a DAO behind it. It's going to be governance, and that will ultimately control a lot of that. There will be a single risk curator across covering all of the vaults and so on as well. So it won't be the Morpho or Euler thing. It will just be a single risk curator who will manage the risk, or manage the exposure, or manage the deposit caps and so on, to make sure your money is protected, and absolutely like minimizing the risk as much as possible, but so you can earn a better yield than if you try to go and do it yourself. Because the harsh reality is if you're trying to check and so on, you're never going to be there checking like within a block or two of getting the best rates like the automated tools can get you, and so on. And it's connected up to, again, all of the top tier DeFi protocols. What it's not doing is it's not kind of like, it isn't farming rewards to boost its yield on protocols you've never heard of as well. It's going after kind of trusted top tier DeFi protocols that you've heard of, basically, but would be able to go and find more information out about as well. So it's taking the earn part of Summer.fi today, and where the existing product is very much for DeFi natives, it's very much a kind of sophisticated product. This is an unsophisticated product. Very simple to get started. On the UI, there's going to be like passkey and email signups and so on. It really is targeting kind of like the newer users that are not yet there in DeFi. And it's built and designed, so it should be easily integratable into existing Web2 apps as well, and so on. So the ultimate goal really is to actually, when we see a lot of people on Twitter and so on talking about how we onboard the next 100 million users into DeFi, we're not onboarding them through DeFi protocol front ends and so on. I think that's the harsh reality of what we're all doing. Like, we're not onboarding 100 million people into protocol front ends. We have to take DeFi to where the users use and store their fiat money already today, and take DeFi to them. So they don't even have to know they're using DeFi, but they get to use this new technology that we've all been working on for several years in the easiest possible way, and earning a better rate than the banks can.
Say hello to Puffer Unify. Puffer Finance is expanding beyond native liquid restaking with new products such as Unify-based rollup and Unify pre-confirmations AVS. Unify is not just another L2. Unify is a based rollup, one that will solve L2 issues, such as slow withdrawals versus instant withdrawals with Puffer Unify. Puffer Unify is fast, capable of sub-second transactions. Unify also has boosted Puffer points, which means if you bridge assets, you earn boosted Puffer points and rewards from dApps on Unify. Puffer's core products mean a bright future for Ethereum. Puffer Unify will launch in November 2024. Learn more at puffer.fi.
Chris, I've been a little torn
about this like design choice of, do you create like a marketplace of risk curators? Do you kind of open up the opportunity for others to curate what are the best yields, or what are the best like setups for these yields? And for anyone that doesn't like understand what we're discussing, like all you got to do is like take a look at something like Morpho, take a look at Euler. They are choosing to have like this other player work within their ecosystem, where you have like an RE7, or I think MEV Capital was like another one of them. It's a team that is, they're working to identify the best like risk adjusted yields. But I do think my criticism of this design has been that it potentially opens up users to being exposed to teams that can be very good at marketing, like using their vaults, but maybe aren't actually identifying the best yields. However, I do believe like over time, with all the competition playing out, like you would hope that the market will prove that, the most amount of money is being deposited into the best vaults, the best yields that have the best track record. You're choosing to go a different route here, which for me has been the route that I've tended to favor. It reminds me of like what Yearn did back in the day, like just having like one front end, knowing that the team behind that front end is doing a lot of coordination, like off chain, to identify the best yields. And so that's the way Summer.fi works right now. Like there's a team that is, curating what they think are the best yields, and then it ends up on this sort of front end. So any other thoughts? Like you shared a bit about like why you've chosen to go that direction. I think I just laid out like I have some criticisms of the marketplace that is created by like a Morpho or Euler. But I also recognize like if you have a failure on your team on Summer.fi, this lazy summer protocol team, like obviously it doesn't provide opportunity for others then to potentially come in and to create those yields. Like it's all coming from one place. So anyways, maybe you can just quickly summarize again, like why did you guys choose this direction?
Yeah, so actually we've chosen a slightly middle ground direction for that. So it won't actually be Summer.fi doing the risk curation for that. We are going to have a risk team, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to confirm soon, like which risk team that is that's going to be curating it. But we know from the market, like we are not the risk experts or anything like that. Like we build very good products, and that's where our expertise lies. And that's why with the Lazy Summer protocol, we want to find a risk curator that is very well known, has one of the best reputations in this space for doing this thing. But we don't want to open it up to have like 10 vaults offering basically the same thing, which is going to be extremely confusing to particularly new users coming in that are trying to make use of this protocol. So we are going to have a risk curator. It isn't going to be Summer.fi curating the risk, but it isn't going to be a list like a marketplace of them. It will just be one. Governance will be able to offboard them and onboard another one, like someone else, if they need to. The design is set so there can only be one initially, but again, it's one of the protocols that governance has a lot of choices it can make. If it wants to onboard more over time, it certainly can, but at least initially, and the vision for it is just this single risk curator that we all know and trust already for a lot of our products within DeFi. Already that will be managing the exposure, managing the protocols that are kind of like supported through the deposit caps on each protocol and so on. How much money can we move from one to another at any one time? Like how much exposure can the entire vault safely take in before maybe it starts to become a kind of single source of failure point, and so on, which increase the risk to the whole ecosystem potentially as well. So yeah, we're not going to go like down effectively like that, like Yearn, like you said, where the Yearn team was managing it, or like we're managing it. It will be outsourced effectively to a risk curator, but just one. So there isn't this kind of either race to the bottom on fees, or that helps the yield increase a little bit, or encouraging them to take more risk in order to boost their APY so they appear at the top of the page. because I don't think, again, we talk about kind of what's best for users. That isn't what's best for users, in my opinion.
Chris, will the Lazy Summer protocol be governed by this future Raise token, or will it have its own token?
It will have its own token. The raises are just the points, effectively the name for the points and so on. But there is going to be some overlap that we're going to reveal in about 4 to 6 weeks around what that overlap is, and so on. So yeah, the raise are going to continue. The raise are the points for the current app. The current app isn't going anywhere either. Like that's just going to become kind of Summer.fi Pro in a way. So that will be the pro interface where you can continue doing all of this stuff. There will be a dedicated interface for the new protocol. The designs that we have currently are absolutely amazing. If I say so myself, it looks really beautiful. And there will be kind of like, again, there's a governance token for the Lazy Summer protocol, and combined with the raise and so on, there's a big overlap there. So it all kind of will form into one at the end, basically.
I just want to go back to something you said earlier, Chris. I love that concept and idea of bringing easy DeFi yield from Web3 into Web2. I think DeFi yields, I know in a bear market they can wane a bit, but I think they really impress a Web2 audience when they actually see some of these yields. So my question to you is, I'm just curious if you're having any of these conversations with any big Web2 players already about how to integrate these yields and get them in front of these 100 million users that you're talking about wanting to bring on. Like, are those conversations already happening on the back end?
Yeah, some of them are. Yeah. So, and for my own background, like I worked in fintech in London before my time at Maker and so on. So yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have made a lot of connections in that space as well, and that's in like the digital wealth management space there as well, which is kind of like one big area we see a lot of the opportunities and stuff for here. Yeah, but those conversations have already started now. And so on, and there's definitely interest in this. I mean, crypto is already becoming like this again. It feels like it's in the news a lot, and so on. Like the regulations, it seems maybe are getting closer and closer to making it even easier to onboard this stuff. And yeah, the thing I get is nobody wants to be last. Whether anyone wants to kind of go first with it is another thing. We saw some like Web2 companies get burned with the kind of Luna Terra, the USDT stuff, or whatever, like back in the day. When they tried to integrate some of those yields and so on. But yeah, like it's something that at least fintech companies in particular can't like kind of shy away from and so on. Are going to have to offer this stuff like moving forward. And I mean, I think it has helped with the fact where PayPal got into crypto, have the PayPal USD and so on, kind of shows where this space is going as well. But yeah, we need from our point of view, a trusted and like absolute risk minimized protocol, basically that's able to offer these things. And the great thing about the way we've designed the protocol as well is we can actually deploy kind of walled garden versions for some of these big Web2 companies if they want. So they don't have to mix their stuff with a completely permissionless version. We can deploy individual versions where they bear the cost, for example, of running the rebalancer and so on. Can still be they can still outsource the risk if they want to the risk managers, but they can also control the risks themselves. But it allows them to basically have this very much customized version where their own like legal compliance teams and so on be able to say, hey, yeah, we can support this protocol, and this protocol, but we don't want that one. So like that, have that one removed from like their version and only allow their users to access it. So they know that their money, when it's deposited into that vault, is not being mixed with unknown money around the world, basically, which has often been the difficulty of a lot of kind of these different conversations and so on. We've had like different parties in the past as well. Like, where's my money being mixed? It's obviously still being mixed on the underlying protocols and so on that we can't do anything about. But what we can do is to say, hey, like your deposits are like kind of locked inside this vault. You control the whitelist and stuff to it. You control how you want to integrate that, whether that's like a single deposit from a cold, like kind of hot wallet, cold wallet kind of connection, or you allow individual users to spin up wallets behind the scenes on their backends and so on that they control the keys and stuff for. Like it's very customizable. And yeah, and because of that customizability, we see it's a much easier sell to them because they can control the risk and like legal exposure effectively to what they're doing.
This is probably a good place for us to start to wrap up, guys. So I want to remind our listeners that they should first learn more about Summer.fi by going to Summer.fi. Second, they should follow Summer Finance _ on Twitter or X. That's a great place to just catch all the major updates. And then third, if you go to YouTube or just go to our show notes, whether you listen to this on the podcast or on YouTube or on pods.media, and you'll see a link there to the Summer.fi YouTube channel. They just do a great job of like stringing together tutorials and really interesting conversations about like how to use all the different features on Summer.fi, but also it tends to go into some strategy or some thinking about like how do you use all these different DeFi products, whether you're, earning by just doing a simple lend, or whether let's say you're using DAI or the new token for the Sky ecosystem, earning what would be the DAI savings rate. So lots of great information there to learn from. And then Chris, just thanks so much for joining us. I wanted to close out with one final question. Based on TVL or any other metric that is top of mind for you, what are the most like popular products and positions nowadays on Summer.fi? And aside from that, just thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate having you on, and yeah, would love to close out on that.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been fantastic. On the position side, so as a protocol, Maker still dominates from the TVL side of things. Like that is definitely the most popular. I think Morpho is probably the most popular protocol now being used by new users. Pretty much probably this year. It's gained like some really good traction. It's like nailed its base launch as well. It hasn't diversified liquidity across too many L2s, which was actually kind of really nice to see. Like you can only access it on mainnet and L2s. But again, we talked about the risk curate and stuff there, but the different ways you can do stuff on there has just been really, really nice, and it's really appealed to users. And from a products point of view, whether it's Aave, Spark, Morpho, whatever, the ETH yield loops are, I think, the most popular products. Again, if we look at kind of this year and the last 6 months and so on, definitely the most popular products that we have. I think that's telling of the market of where we are, where nobody really kind of knows where it's going to go. Like we saw a lot of like multiply positions kind of close out and so on, like some profits taken from where the prices went up earlier in the year and so on. But yeah, yield loops are like, I think the yield loop positions are going to be around for a long time. They are, the safest bet, the kind of lowest risk in a way. And it's, you don't have to give up your ETH or risk losing your ETH. So certainly where my biggest position is in as well at the moment.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And to stay up to date with future episodes, plus get expert tips, strategies, and exclusive content, subscribe to our free newsletter at the-edge.xyz.